Another week of those mostly peaceful protests. That's right. This time in the once great city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. You know, the city where the guys that play our bumper music come from. Yeah, mostly peaceful protests in the wake of another horrible, racist, fascist, systemically oppressive police shooting of a innocent young man who didn't do nothing once again. Sadly, though, these peaceful protests in Minneapolis have given way to violent insurrections just across the border in Canada. Yeah, it's a terrible, dreadful thing to witness. This horrible, violent right wing insurrection funded by foreign players from the United States and Russia who apparently can't agree on anything except for the right wing elements being able to fund these convoys. Definitely a threat to democracy. Everywhere you look, a threat to democracy. Night and day, they run, they honk their horns in nightmarish post apocalyptic fashion, conjuring up images of a world after a total collapse. Nothing but lawless violence, and that's got this guy really, really, really upset. Yeah. You see, Trudeau doesn't like his authority challenge. That's one of the things that he has in common with this guy. And right now, this guy is sweating bullets at the prospect of having to deal with what this guy's got to deal with these guys. But I really could give a fuck less. The opinion of this guy, especially this guy, or even this guy, don't mean a fucking thing to me. I'd much sooner trust the word of this guy. Because this guy, through the entire fucking crisis, has never lied, never overreached, never shut down a small business, never interfered with my personal freedom. No, all he's done was continue to bring the goods that kept us fed, that kept us working, that kept us alive during this entire crisis. And as far as I'm concerned, that guy is worth any 10 of the previous motherfuckers. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and nobody else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough, certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind, and they are guaranteed to choke you with a big, fat dose of the truth cock. Boys and girls, welcome back. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. Speaking of Minneapolis, my boys, Red Desert from the smoldering embers of that once great city. Everybody in for the drum roll, man. We love it. We love it. Nice. Little kick out the jams, rock and roll from the one and only Red Desert. The name of the track is Older, No Wiser. As long-term listeners to the program are well aware, every week I get a little bit older, and every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others, man. This may not be one of those weeks. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and it's totally random. I'm going to try to stick to the bullet points, man. There's so fucking much going on. So much has got to be over a barrel, but I got to tell you, I'm in a good mood. I'm in a really, really fantastic mood going forward. How about we take a look, do a quick roll call, see who all's on board early. Of course, the lovely Miss Emmy. Always a pleasure to see you, young lady. And, of course, we got Roman from opiumtales.com. And, of course, I can't see her yet, but I know she's there. His lovely wife, Carrie. We got Joey, the Sultan of Sarcasm. Good to see you back, brother. Who else? There's Carrie. And, of course, Brother James Pearson. Good to see you, man. You're going to enjoy a lot of this stuff. I'm really not going to get off too much into that Minneapolis situation because that's going to require like a whole sermon unto itself. But we'll get it figured out, man. It's just another case of them pressing the narrative trying to egg on the violence, and once again, it's successful because people never fucking learn. That's where we're at. Sorry to run a little bit late. I'm trying to make sure we've been having some difficulty with the Wi-Fi. In fact, for the better part of the weekend, it was entirely shut down. I thought we were going to have to cancel this week. Thankfully, we got it back up and running, so we're going to do what we can do here. And of course, Brother Roman reminding everyone, like, share. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. I got to get to that magic number of subscribers before I'm properly able to weaponize it. I'm sorry, monetize it. But you guys know the drill. But yes, definitely, man. If you guys like and share and subscribe, it definitely bumps me up in the algorithm. Algorithm, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those. But anyway, thank you for the reminder, Roman. We appreciate you. And of course, everything you do for the program. Man, what a week. What a fucking week. But I'm not going to let it get me down, man. Whole lot of stuff going on in the world. Whole lot of stuff that could bend me out of shape. Whole lot of stuff that once upon a time might have bent me out of shape. But not now, man. We're too far gone. We're too past the tipping point. There is nowhere to go but forward. Come what may. Laughing, let us perish. Amid laughter, let us face our doom. I think we're over the hump. I think we're winning. I think we're in a better position than we've been in a long, long time. And I find myself more optimistic than I have been in a long, long time. So much so that I have bypassed the usual liquid refreshment, the usual liquid enthusiasm. You guys know I'm not a drinker, but I do love a good ginger beer. This one happens to be Reed's, which is the Reed's Extra Strong Stuff, the best commercially available one on the market. Of course, there are small batch brewers that do better ones, but the big commercial brands, Reed's is the bomb. And you guys know, if you have followed my crane operator journey, when I was going through that process, ginger beer is my victory dance, man. Anytime I pass a cert test, anytime I pass one of my practicals, anytime there's been a moment of brightness and achievement in my life, whether it's on the crane journey or anywhere else, I celebrate with a ginger beer of some sort. So the fact that I'm on the can of Reeds right now, I want to tell you that I'm feeling pretty positive, in spite of evidence that would sway people to the contrary if they were paying attention. But again, man, you guys know the drill around here. We don't do black pills. We don't do depression. We're not giving in to any of that shit. Not one bit of it, man. We are charging forward. I'm not going to get into all the bullshit cliches, always darkest before the dawn and whatnot, because, the truth of the matter is I don't fucking believe that. Neither do you. But we are where we are. And the power structure is doing what it's always been doing and what it's always going to do. It's as predictable as the fucking sunrise. Aaron, good to see you back, man. Glad you made it out. Hopefully things are going all right on the home front. You guys know my bro, Aaron. Aaron, big round of applause for Aaron. He's been holding it down for me up there at the Bart bunker ever since I started this long and drawn out journey of personal exploration and development. Also, man, he has kept the classes going up there with the kettlebells and the tire flipping and all that, and has turned into a quite capable instructor. And I'm almost, I don't think I'm even going to try training with him until I get that hip replaced, man, because I think I'm just going to embarrass myself. Anyway, Aaron, good to see you back. So yeah, where the fuck were we? Let's get the sponsor shout outs out of the way real quick. Let's knock that out. Of course, Casey and Dusty Tellison, my Viking brothers, from Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest, period. End of statement, fucking done. You can disagree, but you will be fucking wrong. They are setting up the long ship again at American Gun and Pawn off of Sprague every Thursday. They start at 11 and they sell until they run out, and they usually run out quickly. So guys, if you're in the Spokane area, get your asses out there. You owe it to yourselves. The only legit barbecue in the Northwest, Nordic Smoke Barbecue. And of course, Brother Roman, opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people, and beyond being flagship sponsors of the program, Roman is one of my oldest and dearest friends, and you can check out his artwork, him and Roxy and Allie and bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com, and his testosterone-driven commentary. Naked women, testosterone-driven commentary. What the fuck is not to like about that? So definitely go check them out, openingtales.com. And Roman, thanks for being on board for everything we got going on. Okay, let's shake this up real quick. Get this segment going. And again, still finding my way around the interface here, but you go with the banners and then we click here and you guys know what's coming. That is correct. It is time for Ryan's Rabbit Hole. A journey into the obscure, the esoteric, the historical, the conspiratorial, all sorts of stuff. You never know where it's going to go. It's a really popular segment. Everybody seems to dig it. Every week, Brother Ryan, who is definitely the minister of the obscure and the esoteric, and also the guy that facilitated me changing my life by virtue of this crane journey, and I will always appreciate you for that. What I really miss is being on the job site with Ryan, because we could have these discussions and chase these fucking rabbit holes, as we often did together out on the wind farm, and you can lose 2 hours like that, you know, if you've got some downtime. But anyway, this week we are going to touch on something a little historical and a little conspiratorial. Francis Dashwood. Now, I'm not going to take you too far down that rabbit hole. I'm just going to get you over the edge and give you that little push. This is Sparta, wow, you know, and send you down that way. But beyond being a prominent member of British and European high society, and there are a number of stories of his interactions with some of the more prominent historical figures of the time. He was one of the founders of the Hellfire Club, and the Hellfire Club deserves a rabbit hole all of its own. The original was founded by Philip, Duke of Wharton. The actual specific year escapes me for the moment, but Dashwood wasn't around for the first iteration or the first incarnation of the Hellfire Club, but he was a prominent figure and co-founder of the second time around, and that is what led to a number of figures, including a certain Benjamin Franklin, a certain founder who was a member of the Hellfire Club. And again, I will let you pursue that rabbit hole as far down as you want to go. There are allegations of satanic rituals. There are allegations of orgies and all sorts of occult rituals and behavior. There are allegations of all sorts of things. What you choose to explore and what you choose to believe, I'm going to leave up to you. But the two rabbit holes that you're going to go down this week, these search terms are going to be Francis Dashwood and the Hellfire Club. I think the Hellfire Club will take you a little bit deeper, something on its own volition. So if you want to find out about Francis Dashwood, the historical figure, and his involvement with European high society and the rich fucking legacy of bizarreness behind that guy, you really need to look him up first. Francis Dashwood, check him out, because otherwise you're going to wind up, you're going to come away with the impression that the Hellfire Club is the sum total of his contribution to history and to European high society and all that in that particular era, and it can be further from the truth. So Francis Dashwood and the Hellfire Club, that is going to be Ryan's rabbit hole for this week. All right, so let me see. Kill that tab real quick. You guys know I do it right here, man. I've got all my bullet points laid out. Literally, I don't have much of an outline to go on. G.W. Bowles, who may or may not be here. I didn't see him during the roll call. He'll probably show up a little bit later. G.W. Bowles, by the way, is a trucker. We discussed him a little bit last week and his views on the protests. If I can get him on, I think it would be a pretty cool interview. Me and G-Dub have butted heads so fucking hard over so many foreign policy issues over the years, but at the end of the day, the one unifying trait that we have together is a pursuit of individual liberty and a belief in the promise of America. The promise of America, if not currently the delivery. That can vary from That can vary from one time or the other. But let's go ahead. The first topic that I wanted to get into, again, the headers that I had, was a timeline for the Ukraine. Now, you guys, if you have been watching the news, they have been driving this narrative. I mean, driving it hard. The State Department, the soundbite that I played you last week, where it's like, well, there's the evidence. We gave it to you. Well, yeah, but you didn't give me any evidence. Well, no, I just told you. I just told you what we know. I just declassified it. Yeah, but you didn't show me any proof. Oh, no, it is proof. We just told you what we know. Right. We're supposed to take your word for it. Again, the circular logic. If you guys were here, if not, go back and check out the replay. You can see the soundbite and the way that that whole thing played out. They've been driving it. And we're talking the mainstream legacy media across the board. Fox is no exception. For those of you who are still playing team sports and think that anyone at Fox outside of Tucker Carlson can remotely be trusted to be anything resembling objective. And again, Tucker has his moments where he runs hot and cold as well. But again, legacy media, they are doing what they do. They are, and they always have been, a propaganda machine for the power structure. What is the power structure? What is the power structure? What is the deep state? Let's get off on that for a minute. Again, this isn't one of my taglines, but Ryan's been encouraging me. He's like, look, dude, when you go down Tangent Street, just fucking run with it. So we're going to do that this week. What is the deep state? How do we qualify the deep state? First, they tell us the deep state doesn't exist. Then they acknowledge that it exists, but it's a good thing. It's the usual crawfish and damage control that the propaganda machine always does. I want you to think about something. You guys remember Eisenhower? You remember Eisenhower's parting speech? You guys remember that? Right? Where he warned of the growth of the military-industrial complex. The potential for disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. He warned of the growth of the military-industrial complex. What very few of you know is that in the first draft of that speech, it was the military-industrial congressional complex. Now, what is that, if not the deep state, as we have come to understand it? Now, he eliminated congressional from the speech because it was thought that it would alienate certain politicians in his party who were running for congressional re-elections and might have to face a challenge in the midterm. So he pulled it. But if you look, who understood it better than Eisenhower? He had been on all sides. He had been a politician. One of his most famous quotes from office, they were walking him around and they were trying to sell him on a big military spending bill. And he said, man, I really worry for when someone is in this Oval Office that doesn't understand the military the way that I do. Another famous quote, I remember his son talking about this in an interview where he built the interstate highway system essentially under the guise of a military expenditure. He took money that the contractors were hoping were going to be spent on weapons and things like that to pad their pocketbooks and their bank accounts. He took that money and he built roads with it. And the military premise for that was to be able to transport troops and supplies and everything rapidly across the country because we didn't have a network like that. And he incorporated certain things in the interstate highway system that for every X amount of miles, you have to have one straight strip of interstate that can be used as an airstrip. So if the homeland ever did fall under attack, as we're having to pull back, we've still got usable airstrips for the Air Force. This is how we did. And what he told his son was, I took military money and I built roads with it. Let him impeach me. But again, getting back to the speech, military industrial congressional complex, that to me defines what we have come to understand as the deep state. And if you believe that that doesn't exist, and if you believe that legacy media isn't a propaganda arm, for that very deep state. Literally, you're beyond help. Just in my adult life, I have watched the media, who supposedly hated Republicans, run interference for Bush Sr. in the run up to Operation Desert Storm. I watched a supposedly anti conservative, anti Republican legacy media run interference for Bush Jr. in cherry picking intelligence about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and the expansion of the surveillance state. They ran interference for that. Oddly, the only guy who they literally excoriated was that orange fella, which says some things to me. You can agree or not. But what they're doing now is exactly what they've always done. Now, of course, they were doing puff pieces for Biden. We know that Biden is not running things. We know that his handlers are whoever they are. And we know that his handlers are going to be 100% straight deep state. They want the war for any number of reasons. The Democratic Party wants the war as a distraction from the disaster that Biden's first year has been. That's why they want the war. But the media is driving it versus the deep state because, again, it enables them to expand their control factor, and it enables the contractors themselves to make a fuck ton of money. But let's examine what's really going on in Ukraine. Independent, again, let's look at the signal, independent of the media noise. How did we arrive where we are in Ukraine right now? 2013 and 2014, the Maidan uprising. There was a leader in place, a prime minister in place in the Ukraine, who was, according to our legacy media, a Russian puppet. Now, keep in mind, Obama was still in the White House. Joe Biden was still vice president at the time. The European Union put pressure on Ukraine. We did everything that we could through intelligence networks and intelligence operatives and covert operations on the ground to push for this uprising to throw out the existing leader, because we didn't want a Putin, like so many things over the years with regard to American foreign policy. We're okay with a puppet leader so long as he's our puppet. Look back no further than 1953, and remember 1953 because it's going to come up later, because history has a sense of humor. Mossadegh in Iran. We couldn't have people voting for someone that actually protected their interests. No. We need a puppet leader, and we don't mind a puppet leader so long as he's our puppet. And we installed Shah Reza Pahlavi, and what followed for the Iranian people were decades of horror. The Shavak, the secret police, families being disappeared in the middle of the night. Much like Pinochet in Chile. We don't care what these people do so long as they are advancing proper foreign policy for the deep state. And that is essentially what the nature of the unrest was that we fomented in Ukraine from November 2013 going into February of 2014, when shit really heated up. The Ukrainian government tried taking back the ground that they had lost. It came to extreme fucking violence. And eventually the puppet leader that we objected to was ousted. And we installed our own puppet in place, a fellow by the name of Poroshenko, if you had been paying attention. Here's the kicker about that. Poroshenko and his guys, oddly enough, for an administration at the time with Obama and administration now with Biden that so frequently lauds uh, and laments, rather, the growth of systemic racism and white supremacy. The regime that came in Ukraine was made up almost entirely of right sector neo Nazis. You look that up. Look up right sector neo Nazi Ukraine. One of the first things that'll come up is an article from Reuters in 2018 commentary, Ukraine's neo Nazi problem, and it will take you down, give you some background on that. So, the first African American president basically fomented a revolution that wound up with neo Nazis being in charge of Ukraine. And in the meanwhile, Ukrainians went into areas of eastern Ukraine, and particularly Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula, right there on the Black Sea, the headquarters of Russia's Black Sea Fleet, a matter of tactical importance, if ever there was one, a thing to be defended for Putin, if ever there was one. And the Ukrainians went in and started massacring ethnic Russians, horribly, brutally, chaining up doors to concrete apartment complexes, setting buildings on fire, women, kids, shot dead in the fucking streets. The legacy media did their job then too, didn't bother reporting it. Here's something else the legacy media didn't bother reporting at the time. While the Ukrainians, the neo-Nazi Ukrainian government that we'd installed, was slaughtering ethnic Russians, Joe Biden quietly installed, after the legacy media had told us that this was all an organic uprising against, people throwing off the chains of oppression, blah, 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 blah. We got to find out why we're really in it. Because quietly behind the scenes, Joe Biden, who was vice president at the time, installed his son in a very high-ranking executive position on the board of directors at Burisma. Yeah, Burisma. You might have heard about that. That was some of the Russian disinformation. That was some of the tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that the legacy media did their job in telling us we were crazy for paying attention to, but it's all come out now. He was making in excess of $75,000 a month with no expertise whatsoever. Now, all of the former Soviet republics are corrupt. All of them, without exception. Even the ones we like, they're all corrupt. It's the nature of the business, and it has been ever since the fall of the Soviet Union. But Ukraine, in particular, very, very corrupt. And it's rare that someone will surface that will actually have the balls to take on those corrupt politicians. Now, you would think if we are the ministry of peace and love and honesty and integrity, as we like to portray ourselves, you would think that we would encourage a bold prosecutor like that who was going after corruption at Burisma. But it didn't quite work out that way. And unfortunately, because the internet is forever, we have this soundbite from our current cadaver in chief, where he bragged about getting the prosecutor fired who was investigating the corruption at Burisma, where he had installed his son. I want you to pay close attention to this because it's wide open. He brags about it.
I remember going over convincing our team, our others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to the press conference. Said, "No," I said, "I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion." They said, "You have no authority. You're not the president." The president said, I said, "Call him." I said, "I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion." I said, "You're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here." And I think it was 6 hours. I looked, I said, "I'm leaving in 6 hours." If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Someone who was solid. That is to say, someone who would not investigate the corruption going on at Burisma. Now, in the midst of all that, one bullet point that I didn't get to cover was Putin invading Crimea. Invading. Annexing. This is where we are, boys and girls. Putin properly annexed Crimea because Crimea Peninsula has historically been a part of Russia. Remember when I said 1953 would come up again because history has a sense of humor? In 1953, a shoe-banging whack job by the name of Nikita Khrushchev was running the Soviet Union. Khrushchev was ethnic Ukrainian, and just as a measure of political goodwill, he took the Crimean Peninsula, which had always historically been a part of Russia, and gave it to the Ukraine. Geographic proximity and all, because at the time it was thought that this is basically the leftist version of the 1,000-Year Reich. We're all going to be one big happy family forever. So it doesn't matter if I just ease Crimea over into the hands of Ukraine and take it away from Russia, because we're all one big happy Soviet communist family. 1953. It was referred to as Nikita's gift. Look that up. Historically, it's always been a part of Russia. And as a result of that, just like the eastern region of Ukraine, known as Donbass, it is about 90 to 96% ethnic Russian. The Ukrainians went in and massacred these ethnic Russians in Donbass, and were in the process of doing it in Crimea. And then the polite men showed up. Do some homework on the polite men. I'll say it without saying it. They were essentially Spetsnaz operatives without any logos, without any insignia. Just guys that showed up in military gear and military equipment and just showed up and were very, very polite and saw to it that the massacres of ethnic Russian civilians at the hands of the Ukrainians, the neo-Nazi Ukrainian regime that we had just installed so Biden's son and Biden himself could make a fuck ton of money, and we could ensure a pretext for involvement in that region later. You see where this is going. Putin did what he needed to take care of his people. That is what strong leaders do. They protect their people. They don't leave their borders wide open. They don't piss away their own sovereignty for the sake of protecting someone else's borders halfway across the world. That's not what real leaders do. Putin did what real leaders do, which is whatever was necessary to protect the Russian people that lived in those territories, whether it be in eastern Ukraine, whether it be in Crimea. He looked out for the interests of his own people. If he had wanted Ukraine at the time, he would have had it. I will submit to you now that if he wanted it now, he would fucking have it. There's nothing the Ukrainians can do to stop him. The Europeans certainly aren't going to get involved because Putin controls the gas tap. Thanks again to the policies of our cadaver-in-chief. You see how elections have consequences. You see how we arrive in positions like this. He needs this war as a distraction. The deep state needs this war to make money and expand their power. The American people have fucking nothing to profit from this goddamn war, should it come to pass. They're beating us over the head with it. Putin's going to invade as early as Tuesday. Oh, we meant next Tuesday. Oh, possibly the Thursday after next. And while our legacy media, our propaganda ministry, is beating us over the head with this, what's the rest of the world saying? On PBS NewsHour, this is just a Ukraine says Russia won't invade. That was the Google search term. U.S. officials fear Putin to invade Ukraine next week. And then Foreign Policy Magazine, published by people that understand the nuances of foreign policy, their lead article, Why Russia Probably Won't Attack Ukraine. CBS News, Russia insists it won't start a war as Ukraine seeks to tone down the invasion rhetoric from the U.S. From ABC News, former Ukraine ambassador says Putin may decide not to invade Ukraine. Economic Times, what does Biden say? Russia could invade Ukraine within the hour. CNBC, Russia likely won't invade Ukraine due to enormous cost. Al Jazeera, Ukraine says don't believe apocalyptic predictions over Russia. Do you see a pattern developing here? This is all insane. They are pushing this narrative because they need a distraction. What do they need a distraction from? Well, they need a distraction from a hell of a lot of things. And thankfully, this is going to let me segue with 20 minutes left in the program into some of the other bullet points. What dropped this week? The Durham report. Uh-oh. Big trouble in Little China. Big trouble in Little DC. The Durham report dropped. And what are the first things in line? Well, first of all, let's again look at how big tech is manipulating the algorithms. Google search. Search prompt was Durham report. 2 words. Simple. Google search. Durham report. What drops? Lead story, CNN. Durham's investigation into Russia probe costs $3.8 million so far. RDL, whatever happened to the Durham report? Memo, the illegitimacy of the coming Durham report. And then water reports from Durham, North Carolina. That's what Google gave me back. Oh, wait. New York Post. Clinton campaign paid tech workers to dig up Trump-Russia connections report. Okay, fine. So that's what Google gave me back. Here's what DuckDuckGo gave me back. Durham motion alleges Trump Tower wiretapping. Clinton campaign paid tech workers to dig up Trump-Russia connections. Durham says Democrat allied tech executives spied on Trump's White House office. Durham report, Wikipedia. Durham says Washington Times. Durham says Clinton campaign funded surveillance of Trump. Newsmax. Durham report, Clinton campaign paid to infiltrate Trump campaign. You see where this is going. But of course, big tech doesn't manipulate algorithms. Now, I don't have enough one way or the other to spend a hell of a lot of time on what the Durham report actually does and does not say. And you're right, James. That's exactly the end game with that. I'm not gonna get a whole lot into what the Durham report may or may not say. I haven't had time to sit down and read it. Therefore, I don't have a right to a fucking opinion. I wish more people would adopt that ethic. Then I remember we live in media culture. They need that distraction from the Durham report. Here's some other things they need a distraction from. Honk, honk. It's going global, folks. Who would have thought? I would have thought. Maybe some of you would have thought that truck drivers, blue collar, hard working, hard living truck drivers would be on the front line, putting their asses on the front line to protect our liberties as they get slowly eroded. Who would have seen that coming? I said a long time ago, and you've heard me say this on the sermon, independent of this was a long time ago before any of this was even a prospect. You've heard me say it before that truckers have a ridiculous amount of power, that they are highly underestimated by statists and leftists and power players who dismiss them as a bunch of ignorant hillbilly Trump voter, MAGA hat wearing, country music listening, Joe Rogan podcast fans that probably check out NASCAR on the weekends. These are the motherfuckers that bring you your food. Every good that comes to your door got there on a truck, Sparky. These people literally make the country run. And I am old enough to remember, not very well, not ironclad memory, because again, it was my childhood, but I'm old enough to have memories about the big trucker strike, the last big trucker strike decades ago. Some of the unrest that erupted then. Now, keep in mind, this was the age before the internet. So all we had was ABC, CBS, and NBC, and I was the remote control. Bart, get up, change the channel. Look it up. It's out there. I know you young guys don't understand this, but just do some research. Anyway, I remember that strike breakers were being shot at by other truckers and concerned parties and supporters of truckers. I remember when the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit first passed. Yeah, remember that? Back in the 70s? First 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. And I remember the truckers protesting against that. Okay, you want to give us this ridiculous speed limit and make it impossible for us to earn a living and get our goods to market on time and do all the things that you need us to do? Fine. You want us to drive 55 miles an hour? We will drive 55 miles an hour. And these trucks lined up on stretches of interstate, sometimes 2 lanes, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 lanes abreast, lined up right next to each other and slowed down to 55 miles an hour. The results, of course, were predictable. Traffic backed up for fucking miles. Truckers have a lot of stroke. Those people in power should be goddamn lucky that they don't flex it more often. Ha! Good timing, G-Dub. Good timing. We were just sort of roundabout talking about you and your chosen profession. Here's the thing. Everything that gets to market gets there on a truck. You fuck with them at your own goddamn peril. They have a hell of a lot of stroke. And if they say, we don't move, then the economy stops running. Simple as that. You can tell what kind of people you're dealing with when you look at the people that support the truckers versus the people who are shrieking about the truckers being dangerous, violent insurrectionists. They were all about it when they were deifying a multiple felon scumbag that fell under admittedly tragic circumstances and died with a cop's knee on his neck. A cop who, by the way, later went on to serve a life sentence for it. While these guys were out there burning cities, they were cheered on, and now you've got a legitimate peaceful protest. That's literally based on principle. I want you to follow me on this one. The Canadian truckers, they did a poll, and they tried to push this to paint the truck drivers as hypocrites because their worldview is so skewed. They thought this was a gotcha moment. They did a survey on the truckers, and they found out that 90% of the truckers in that convoy are actually vaccinated. Well, what are they on about then? They're on about the principle. This was never an anti-vaccine protest. This was an anti-mandate protest. This was an anti-government overreach protest. This was an anti-idiocy protest. They flexed on principle. This is the problem with the leftists and why they cannot understand what's really going on in these truckers' heads. That's why they have to postulate that these Canadian truckers are getting funded by right-wing extremist groups out of the United States. And in fact, and I've actually seen this postulated, by the way, in fact, they have made the assertion that boogie, 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 the Kremlin has a hand in these fucking protests. Because it's impossible for them, with their worldview, to contemplate that people could stand on principle, because these people have none of their own. That's why they're constantly saying things like, why does the working class vote against its own interest? How the fuck would you know what a working class interest is? Sounds good in theory, little sparky Marxist. Sounds great in theory that you support the working class. You don't know these people. You ridicule these people because they dig things like big trucks and tractor pulls and NASCAR. Because they listen to country music or Kid Rock. You have nothing but contempt for these people. How the fuck would you even know what the working class interest is? To stand there and say that they're voting against their own interest. What they are doing in Canada right now, and what they are doing all over the world, and I'm about to touch on that. We're going to run a little over today. Go. What they're doing in Canada right now, and what is starting to follow all over the world, is standing on that principle. That even though I'm vaxxed, that I can stand on the principle that that doesn't give you the right to force anyone else to get vaxxed. True freedom of choice for the individual. Wow, there's a concept we seem to have lost track of at some point. Truckers haven't. And what happens? At the end of the day, the military and the police, what are they? Each soldier and each cop, what are they at the end of the day? They are ordinary human beings with families, with love in their hearts for those families, with hopes and dreams for the future, with their own political outlooks. And a lot of them, seeing what is at stake, have offered their support to the truckers. Of course, state is going to state there are plenty of cops out there that are dragging the fuel tanks off of these big diesel rigs, doing what they can to interfere with these truck drivers staying warm, doing what they can to harass them, doing the bidding of the state. Good little attack dogs. Arf, arf. Bark. Beg for your meal, doggy. But I maintain in my heart of hearts that the majority of law enforcement, when it really comes down, are going to break on the side of the people. The ones that don't, you get exactly what you fucking deserve. But further, the military, because they talked about calling the military in on them too. That didn't work out so well, because they found the support of the military for the people and for the protests and for the truckers was inordinately high. You see, the one thing that Canada hasn't done is what the previous 2 Democratic administrations have been working on here. They haven't weeded out the dissenters. The forced vaccines with the military, that was a boon to weeding out the dissenters. The extra scrutiny that was required for the Capitol detail, when they put steel cages around the entire fucking Capitol building right after Biden was inaugurated. You remember that? The extra scrutiny on those soldiers and every other soldier going forward, that was a boon towards getting rid of the dissenters. Oh, you have a Gadsden flag in your profile? You don't belong in the military. You're not going to be a good attack dog when we need you to be. I'm not being hyperbolic here. I'm also not being on message. I know I'm all over the place. But these are the things that I think about. These are the things that I constantly process when I'm looking going forward at what could happen, what will happen, what is happening. And when I say what is happening, I fucking mean that shit. Ponder this, bullet points. This is the Google search for trucker protests global. That was my search prompt. Trucker protests global. First thing that comes up from the Atlantic, Canada's trucker blockades are a warning. From the BBC Freedom Convoy, U.S. urges Canada to end blockade by truckers. Statist's gonna state. Canada's Ontario province declares state of emergency. And from The Guardian, Maple Leaf flags conspiracy theories and the Matrix inside the Ottawa trucker strike. But here's the big one. First big one that comes up. Politico. Ottawa truckers convoy galvanizes far right worldwide. You see where this is going? Any dissent against the regime is far right extremism. Any dissent against the deep state, let alone physical action against the deep state, the power structure, far right extremism, that must be dealt with in the same way that you would deal with domestic terrorists. Right below that, NPR.org, trucker protests against pandemic mandates are spreading. Oopsie. And they mean it. Very next bullet point, New Zealand police arrest COVID trucker protesters. New Zealand anti-vax protesters inspired by Canadian truckers. Move on. New Zealand police break up Wellington trucker strike. That's in New Zealand. And you know where else? The cheese-eating surrender monkeys have officially impressed the shit out of me. Macron urges calm as French convoys approach Paris. French demonstrators converge on Paris, inspired by Canadian trucker protests. Protests against COVID restrictions held in France and the Netherlands. Protesters advance on Paris. And sticking with their previous narrative, I guarantee you before this is over with, somebody, and it's probably going to be from MSNBC, probably that Mad Owl guy, is going to say, that the protest convoys advancing on Paris conjure up images of the Nazis marching through the Arc de Triomphe. You watch. Before it's over, someone is going to make that fucking comparison. I guarantee it. Fucking guarantee it. Anyway. It is expanding. It's going on all over the fucking world. And they can't end it. So why? Why now? Try to crack down. Look what else is going on in the world. Europe is lifting COVID restrictions all over the place. European countries scrapping all COVID rules. Europe lifts COVID rules, Omicron cases down. COVID in Europe. More countries begin lifting antivirus measures all over Europe. And beyond Europe, check this out, even right there in Canada, While you have Trudeau, baby Fidel, there in Ottawa, doubling down, threatening all kinds of things. I'm going to bring in the military. I'm going to crush these protests. These people are going to lose their license. And right next door in fucking Manitoba says, you know what? It's about time to drop these vaccine requirements. Right next door. So again, Trudeau has shown us what we already knew. It has been, from the very beginning, about power. Well, to hear MSNBC tell it, Ryan, yeah, pretty much. Now I'm going to have to come up with like a whole set of fucking secret hand signals and fucking coded speech and numbers. So we're looking. Manitoba is lifting restrictions right next door to Trudeau, doubling down and threatening to bring in the military, threaten violent response against a truly peaceful protest. Why? Because Trudeau won't have his power fucked with. Why is Biden staying out of it except to encourage Trudeau to squash the shit up there? Because he doesn't want to deal with it here. His results are already tanking. It's horrible. In New Zealand, in France, the people have spoken. What are they telling us? They're telling us that the science has changed. Science hasn't changed. And if it has, science came rolling in with 18 wheels on it. That's what's changed. They wanted to know where the tipping point was. They goddamn found it. People are pushing back. People are pushing back hard, and they have no fucking answer for it because they know you can't just throw a shit ton of fresh off the border illegals behind the wheels of these 18-wheelers and have them deliver these goods to market. You can't just do what they've done across so many other sectors where there's a shortage of teachers. The teachers won't comply with us. They won't do what they're told. Fine. We'll bring in the National Guard and have them teach classes. Look it up. It's happening. We don't have enough nurses because we fired them all for refusing the jab. Oh, we'll just bring in the National Guard. How do you think it's going to play out? They know they've got nothing. And in the meantime, here comes the biggest goddamned gaslighting ever. See, Trudeau is showing his true colors. So are the governors of the 6 remaining states that have mask mandates, Washington and Oregon included, Inslee and Cape Brown. It's as predictable as anything. These people are going to hang on to every goddamn bit of power that they've been able to unscrupulously seize. Just like the Whitmers and the Newsoms of the world, the Lori Lightfoots, the Joe fucking Bidens, they're going to hang on to everything. They're not going to let go easily. They're trying to soft soap it. You know what we were told? This is what we were told this week. Jen Psaki blamed the Trump administration for the lockdowns. I'm not even making that up. With a straight face, she looked right at the camera and she said, well, most of the lockdowns took place under the previous administration. As if to say, we never wanted the lockdowns. We never wanted the mask mandates. That was all Trump. We've just been trying to fix it. I've never seen anyone so comfortable with lies and at the same time so profoundly skilled at them. It's amazing. Epic levels of intellectual gymnastics and dishonesty. And I bet that bitch sleeps like a fucking baby. Yes, the majority of lockdowns did take place under Trump. Why? Well, because that's when the pandemic started, and they begged him to lock it down across the board nationwide. These same people who now blame Trump for the lockdowns, they begged him. They cajoled him. They excoriated him in the press. Excoriated, that's my college word. I got like 3 of those. They excoriated him in the press for not making the lockdowns nationwide. And what was Trump's response? I don't have the power to do this. I don't have the power to do this. This is a state issue. It's state authority that is going to make the decision on this. He left it up to the states, and they ripped him for it. Leaving it up to the states, my God, you're going to kill grandma, millions of people, you know. And now they want to turn around and blame the lockdowns on Trump. Let's look at what states locked down. These are the same people. Do you remember when Abbott last year, actually, no, I'm sorry. Yes, early part of last year, said he was getting rid of the mask mandates. He was getting rid of all of it. He was just pulling it. What did Biden have to say about that? That's Neanderthal thinking. Remember that? It's Neanderthal thinking. No. But he never wanted the restrictions. He never wanted the lockdowns. He is the guy that pushed for universal vaccine mandates. And when it was outside his constitutional grasp, he expected OSHA and private companies to enforce it. And now the administration wants to turn around and go, no, we didn't want any of this stuff. This was all Trump. It's not too far of a stretch for Biden. He's got plenty of experience with it on a different level. You guys remember under Obama, the time after time after time that they tried to restrict and ban entire classes of commonly owned weapons. Remember? We're going to ban assault weapons. We're going to ban high-capacity magazines. We're going to ban this. We're going to ban that. And every time they got shut down. And whenever they were confronted about being gun grabbers, we never took your guns away. You've been saying we're going to take your gun. Nobody's trying to take your guns away. No, you did. You tried 6 times, Sparky, and you failed because you didn't have the stroke. It's the same thing playing out all over again, just on a different level. Sure, we didn't want to lock you down. We didn't want to kill the economy. We didn't want to force people to take jabs and you wear masks. I mean, yes, you did. You fucking did. You just couldn't push it through. It's like me training for a fight. Getting my ass kicked. And expecting the guy to fucking thank me for not training hard enough. Bad analogy, perhaps. But worse with the gaslighting is this. They expect to be patted on the back for giving us our rights back. Mark my words, this is what's going to happen at the State of the Union. They are going to say that the science changed and that the science changed due to their policies. They're going to casually ignore the fact that more people died in a single year under Biden with the vaccines and the lockdowns and the mandates and every other goddamn thing than died in a single year under Trump, where no one was vaccinated. They're going to ignore all of that. They are going to ignore the fact that cases still remain up. They are going to focus on nothing but hospitalizations. They are going to draw that distinction that you and I have been drawing from the very start of this thing between dying of COVID and dying with COVID. They are going to do all of these things, and then they are going to say that the pandemic is over and that great leader Biden has delivered on his promise. I'm going to shut down the country. I'm going to shut down the virus. They're going to say that he delivered. Because they are desperate. They have nothing else on which to hang their hat. Do not be gaslit. He doesn't get credit for any of this. The Atlantic. Leftist fucking hacks. Just this week, open everything, end COVID restrictions. It was only back in October that the Atlantic published an article that said the metrics for easing COVID restrictions don't exist. It was only 3 days ago that the Atlantic published an article entitled How to Reclaim Normal Life Without Being Done. And just a couple of days later, open everything, end COVID restrictions. Why? What changed? You know what changed. They looked for the point at which we would push back, and they fucking found it. Don't let them off the hook. Don't lose the momentum. Don't go back to sleep, and don't ever let these maggots live down what they did. That there is a point beyond which we will not be pushed. For the last 2 years, we have seen loved ones dying alone. My best friend died alone. No one was allowed on that floor. No one there to put a hand on his shoulder and tell him, hey, bro, I'll see you on the other side. That played out. That played out tens of thousands of times across the country. People dying alone. Families unable to properly grieve, to properly mourn. Mike, I know you're here. Mike, I know you're here. How many people couldn't attend Harold's funeral? And for the record, Harold didn't even die of COVID. But we couldn't even have a full turnout for his funeral. And that played out tens of thousands of times across the country. People dying alone, families unable to grieve, families unable to mourn. Businesses shut down, told that they were a danger to public health, while hundreds of people crowded into big box stores like Walmart and Target. The single largest transfer of wealth in human history over the course of the last 2 years. Businesses destroyed, lives destroyed, suicide rates through the roof, depression rates through the roof, drug use up, alcohol use up. And more to the point, these sick fucking maggots, more to the point, what they have done to an entire generation of children. We're only 2 years into this and we're already starting to see the signs. Developmental difficulties, speech difficulties, anxiety, the inability to recognize other people by their faces because they haven't been able to see a human face in 2 fucking years. We are headed into the home stretch now, and what we are seeing is the ultimate gaslighting. It's going to get worse when the full spectrum of these side effects really comes out. Do some homework on that before next Sunday. A lot of stuff coming down the pike on that. It's all going to come out. And these same people are going to tell you, hey, man, nobody put a gun to your head. It was your choice. It was your choice. Take the vaccine. We never mandated anything. It is the ultimate gaslighting. We didn't do this to your kids. You did. On that front, I'm going to have to partially agree. And some people still haven't come off of it. Some people still can't wait for that vaccine to be approved for their infants, for their toddlers. Can't wait to get that jab in their arm. So overcome by fear. But I will take solace in this. That fear has shown us all for exactly who the fuck we are. It has shown the statists as the statists and the servile, fawning minions of an authoritarian power structure that they are. It has shown the fearful and the weak for who they are. Don't ever let them forget that going forward. Break no bread with these people. And look around you, maybe at the list of people over here, and establish contact with them. Maybe people that you meet going to places like, oh, I don't know, church. There's another little odd one. Porn shacks and strip clubs are open, but you can't go to church. And nobody lifted a finger. My buddy Cyril Jeff, I remember sitting out in West Texas at a little Asian place with him, and we were having that dinner. Who the fuck would have thought? This was still 2020, by the way. Who the fuck would have thought that Easter Sunday churches would be empty? Upon a virus with a 99+% survival rate, who the fuck would have thought? Everybody has that breaking point. Some of us push back from the very beginning. We never bought it. We never bent the knee, and we never will. Some people thought go along to get along, and eventually they'll come out of it. But they finally hit a breaking point when they could no longer stomach the bullshit. I call that the Bill Maher. Hey, I took my 2 jabs, and you're telling me I still got to wear a fucking mask? Oh, dude, fuck you. I'm done. Everybody has their breaking point. But we're really going to get to see it now, exactly who people are going forward. Because the next thing that's coming is where they gaslight you. To act, to exonerate themselves. No, we were perfectly reasonable about the whole thing. We just wanted the cases to get back to normal. And now the cases are back to normal. So we, as the reasonable leaders that we are going to lift these restrictions and give you your freedoms back. And the Fauci faithful will clap like fucking harp seals. You don't get props for that, Sparky. You had no right to take that from us in the first fucking place. But even worse than the people that had it taken from them were the people that give it up voluntarily. Anyone after this State of the Union, anyone who bends a knee for this fucking gaslighting and continues to advocate for the administration, continues to advocate for Fauci, continues to plead the case of science, they're gone. From my life, anyway. No exceptions. And I encourage you to do the same because they cannot be trusted. Yeah, Brother James. Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining. Outlaw Josie Wales. Classic. Don't fall for the gaslighting and be very, very exacting going forward because these people have shown us exactly who the hell they are. The power plays for the state have shown us. The people. Yeah, most definitely. The people at the top of the power structure have shown us who they are. And there is a very clear split between the DeSantises of the world and the Newsoms and the Kate Browns and the Jay Insleys. I'm sitting up here in the Northwest. They've shown us who they are. And the people that live next to you and the people that are in your circle, they've shown exactly who they are. State is going to state and grazer's going to graze. But you, going forward, you have to think, sheepdog. You have to think about what it's going to mean for your family and yourself and your loved ones. You are going to have to think about that long and hard and adjust your priorities accordingly. God damn it. Because the one thing that they have shown us is what they are capable of. They had a governor responsible for at least 20,000 deaths of elderly people in New York City simply because he didn't want the orange guy to get a win. This is what they're capable of. They kept those mask mandates going for children and approved this experimental vaccine technology for children, even though children across the board do not get ill from this fucking virus, barely transmit it. But they want that jab in their fucking arm, regardless of possible side effects, and it's all coming out. That is what they are capable of. You have listened to talking head after talking head after prominent politician after prominent politician say that because we would not bend the knee, because we would not take the jab, that we belong either in camps or dead. All of these things taken in totality, you're left with only one conclusion. When these people tell you who they are, fucking believe them. And never, ever forget who they are. We're going to have a temporary little slough where all the tension iron's out and everybody's going to want to play nice. I'm done playing nice. Because they have told me who they are. They've shown me who they are. And I do believe them. So when you authoritarian, statist, grazer fucks decide to let your balls drop, flex your spines a little bit while you still have that tentative and very temporary grasp on power that you will have through the midterms, you decide to make your move. Pack a lunch, motherfucker. Because we will remember who you are. And when it's over with, I promise, you will remember who the fuck we are. I'm the Reverend. That is the gospel. I'm way over time here, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, right. Exactly, Ryan. Exactly. That's exactly what I was going for right there at the end. Listen, sorry for running over time, guys. Everything. This is just, it's stuck in my craw, but don't get negative because we are over the hump. We are over the hump, and I believe that we are winning. I believe that we will be able to accomplish our goals with minimal bloodshed, minimal fucking physical interaction on any level. But if I'm wrong, here's the great thing. We still fucking win. We got the balls, the spines, the guns, and most importantly, the fucking truth. All of those things are with us. How can we possibly fucking lose? Anyway, guys, I'm going to close it out with a little bit of clutch, as we always do. A little unfortunate sun to go out on. If anything I dropped on you changed your life, changed your perspective, hit you with something you might not have looked at before, you guys want to toss me a little bit of coin, it would definitely make things easier for me. I'm on PayPal, I'm on Venmo, I'm on Cash App, I'm on Facebook Pay, I'm on all of these things. But I understand it's pretty tight out there economically. If you can't toss me anything, I totally get it. Here's what you can do for me. You can like, subscribe, particularly on YouTube. Bump me up in the algorithm. Get me a little more exposure. Tell some friends, some like-minded kindred spirits about it. Tell them about the program, man. Fat, toothless cripple, rants and raves for an hour every fucking Sunday. Some Sundays for an hour and a half. I think you might need the program. Turn them on. There's something to do. But the one thing. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for everything, Mike. I appreciate it. The one thing that you can do for me, more to the point, do for yourselves, right? One thing you can definitely do for me on that front is remember the prime directives that do your best to live by. We were talking about earlier, be the signal, not the noise. Be the light in a world that's trying to crush you with darkness. And above and beyond anything else that I am, be the strength in a world that respects, applauds, encourages, and exponentiates weakness. Be that strength in a world full of weakness. Never forget who you are and what you're holding here and here and here. I love you guys. Thanks for coming out. See you all next Sunday, man. Thank you very much. Appreciate the support. Thanks to all you guys. Hey, man, look out for yourselves and for each other. Communicate. Peace.